It's about that time for Social Watch, where my voice goes off and yours come on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. That's the place that you could get to air your views and your concerns, and I will be the person to read them, and we can have that conversation with our guest. Our guest today, if you're just joining in, is Honorable James Nyoro. He's the Deputy Governor Kiambu County and has an impeccable record in food security, both locally and internationally. So where do we start on Social Watch today? So we start on Instagram, and we did an opinion poll, Dr. and we were asking, does surplus of maize translate to food security in Kenya, and why, right? Because every time there's an announcement that there won't be enough maize flour, then suddenly there's a lot of panic in the country, and the government is being forced to buy maize from Mexico. Yet we could explore other options, give or take. But we wanted to see what Kenyans think now. 25% of Kenyans said yes, 75% of Kenyans said no. Clearly, we know where the popular opinion is. Let's go to the first comment. At Carlstro Director says, no, because it's not realistic in the real sense of our daily lives. Let's take a look at another tweet. At Cynthia's Closet says, no, we cannot live by maize alone. We need other crops to safely say we have surplus. Dr.
You know, I agree entirely with what they're saying. First of all, I'm very impressed that 75% said no. Because there's more to it than just having its surplus. Just imagine that it is surplus in Uasin Gishu, but it is required in Makueni. So the surplus in Uasin Gishu, if it cannot be moved to Makueni, does not make sense in Makueni. So I'm very impressed by the results there. It makes a lot of sense. We don't need to be. Are we talking about food security, or are we talking about maize security?
But because maize in this country, when we think food, we think ugali.
And that is where we have a problem. That is where we have a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll come to that. Let's take a look at another tweet here. Yes, maize is our staple food and we consume it almost in every meal. This one doesn't agree with you.
No. What we are saying is maize is our staple. Countries all over the world, if you go to Japan, rice is still their staple, even as sophisticated as they are. But they have diversified into other crops and commodities to the extent that when there is no maize and there is potatoes in Nyandarua, people still talk about food insecurity. So we need to look at that and say what exactly is food. Because I think the maize story has been built so much by people who have interest of importing maize every time that we just keep thinking about maize.
Okay, let's take a look at another reaction. No, there has never been a surplus of maize. 2, not everyone eats ugali, githeri, or modokoi. Food is beyond maize.
I said
goes
it.
to your point.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at another. At Miss Kisongochi says, yes, I would say in Kenya, maize is like our staple food. And if we lack maize in Kenya, we are kind of on a hunger strike or disaster, so to say.
It is true. It is true because, like I said, if you look at China, they have a very, very clear policy on national strategic stocks for rice.
Okay.
So there are staples all over the world. Maize is our staple. So what we need to do is to make sure that we have it.
Okay.
But also make sure that we start to diversify our habits, our eating habits. You know, there are people who are eating more rice now than maize. Okay. There are people who are eating more chapati than maize. But maize also is easy to prepare. It's one of those, if you are making ugari and sukuma, you can do it within a very short period of time. If you are doing chapati, I have never done chapati, but I know it requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of inputs. If you are doing rice, again, it may not be complicated, but there has to be a different thing. I don't see many people eating rice with sukuma.
Okay, but okay. Let's move on.
Yeah.
At Akinyi Dori, one of our very loyal people who always sends feedback, says yes. I think it translates to food security because even in times of starvation cases and hunger, the food given is maize. To a percentage, it is still Kenya's staple food, and its availability indicates there's food in the country. Its unavailability means we are facing a food crisis.
Let me talk about that. We have been trying to change that narrative because what was happening a few years ago is whenever there would be drought, including in northern Kenya, you would get vehicles, including NYS vehicles, transporting maize all the way to Mandera or Marsabit. But those guys there eat rice. So what was happening was that those lorries would transport maize to Mandera, and those guys would say, transport it back and sell it in Thika and bring us rice.
Okay.
So what has been happening now, and this is something that is gaining a lot of ground, is that if you want to do famine relief, okay, you can do it in many ways. First of all, you can target that you said rice there instead of sending maize that comes back to said rice. The other thing that is coming up and gaining a lot of popularity is that said people money. Let the private sector move the commodity that those people eat in Mandera. So you know that that household requires 400 shillings to buy food. So you set them like through Inua Jamii, you set them the money through their mobile phone, and Oxfam and other organizations have tried that, and now rice traders from Thika will know that people in Marsabit will be having money, so they will take rice there, so that they eat the commodity that they always eat, but they don't eat what you think they should eat.
Well, you have a lot of faith in the Kenyan people, which is a good thing. Let's move on to WhatsApp. Same question, and that Kevin Kabuya says, no, it doesn't mean that. Food security of a community or a state depends on the availability of nutritious food that is affordable, not necessarily cheap. Let's talk about this, because you mentioned food prices in the market. Let's look at the per capita income of Kenyans. Not many have a lot of money. Many Kenyans live below $1 a day. So it's affordable, it's nutritious, but not necessarily cheap. How many Kenyans can afford?
I don't know what she means, or he means by not cheap but affordable. Affordable, what we are saying, and let me make this very clear. If we import maize now from Tanzania, it will get to Kenya at 1,600 shillings per bag. If you import the same from Uganda, it will probably get to Kenya at 1,700 per bag. If you produce it in Kitale, just next to Kapcholo, which is in Uganda, you will produce it at 2,400, 2,500. So that's what we are saying. Because of high cost of production, and because that will have to be translated in the consumer price, the food becomes too expensive.
Okay.
Now, if you are given a choice, and that is normally what happens, at this period now, a lot of maize will be coming from Tanzania. This period, as we enter into August, because their harvest is faster than ours, a lot of maize will be coming at 1,600. But when Kenyan maize start getting harvested in September, October, that's when the price shoots to 2,000, 2,300, 2,400. And that's what we are saying. If you look at why maize is cheap in Uganda, they are able to get more bags per unit area. Productivity, so that the cost is divided across a bigger base.
I hear you.
Now, so we need to be very careful when we are defining food security. Look, the poor, living in the slum areas, they spend 70% of their income on food. And about 40 to 45% of that is on maize. So if you are spending 70% of your income on food only, it means you only have 30% on non-food, including medical, including takes kids to school, including ratia, including buying a dress or whatever. So what we are saying is, if you can reduce the cost or the price of food, make it 1,600, make the packet of unga 85 shillings. If you can reduce it that way, the poor will spend about 50% of their income on food, and 50% will be available for non-food uses.
Good point. You brought in the prices of unga, and our field team went out to the field and spoke to people about this issue too. And people had very interesting things to say about the prices of maize flour in this country, because as Dr. Nyoro has just put it, most of the income by Kenyans go to buying foodstuff, and it leaves them with very little income to spend on other things. So it was a very interesting perspective listening. Unga lazima ipungue bwana. What's your thought, Daktari?
Exactly. That's exactly what we are saying, but not as at what we are doing today. Because, as I said, when we are buying Ugandan maize and Tanzanian maize earlier in the season, if you follow carefully the trend of prices, unga is probably 85, 90, it doesn't get to 100.
Okay.
But the minute we start harvesting ours, which is ironical because when we are harvesting ours, it should come to 75, that is when it starts to build because our cost of production is high. So again, going back to the Coca-Cola story that I was talking about, if you want to tackle the problem for these guys in the urban center, so that they spend less and less of their income on food, please increase maize productivity so that you reduce the cost. And farmers, and there is an ironical thing, let me tell you, this ironical thing, sometimes our farmers think that whenever they are given a high price, they always get a high profit. No. You can get a high profit at a low price, depending on your cost of production.
Hold on to that thought. We are almost running out of time, so we want to go through Twitter very quickly. So very briefly, at Asiko, this girl Asiko says, the kind of fertilizer and pesticides we use is essential for long-term food security. If they contain elements that can harm the soil, then the long-term plan for food security isn't happening. Very briefly.
Let me tell you, countries such as Netherlands, we are using about 25 kilos per hectare of fertilizer. Netherlands is using 400 kilos per hectare. Okay, they are still there. They have not developed a second head. They are still, their soils are still productive. This whole element of fertilizer spoils the soil and whatever, we should leave that with our grandmothers. Not even our mothers. Our grandmothers.
I hear you. Let's take a look at the next tweet. It's by Stephen Kimani. Our policies are not fit for the smallholder farmers. Why does the government impose tax on farm inputs? Isn't that counterproductive? Very briefly.
We need to be very careful when we say the government imposes tax on farm inputs. To the best of my ability, to the best of my knowledge, I know that fertilizer is zero rated for both exercise, VAT, and all taxes. I know that pesticides are also zero rated. The only thing that is charged tax is diesel. Okay, but the problem there is you cannot be able to distinguish which diesel goes to farm and which one goes to matatu. So to a large extent, and Kenyans, let us not put our problems where it is not. The problem is not VAT or tax on farming. There is something that we've been talking about where the government imposed a tax on animal feeds. And therefore, the cost of animal feeds is high and it's poor quality, so that when the chicken take it, their eggs laying is low, and therefore it is easier to get eggs from Uganda to come to a gigi market. That is a problem we are trying to solve by ensuring, one, that the tax on farm inputs has been removed. I think it was removed in the last budget, but also ensuring that the quality of animal feed, and that is the work of county governments. That has nothing to do with national government.
Okay, let's take a look at another. At Steph Waswa, and this almost narrows down to the final and the leg stretch of this conversation. What should Kenya's zero hunger action plan be? As we almost come to a close of this conversation, what do we need to do
Great.
to ensure that by 2022 or even sooner, because 2 million people are on the brink of starvation, we are food secure as a nation.
Great. The president has come up with the big four. One of the big four is food and nutrition strategy. What we need to do is to unpack that. And one, consider that the national government will never get into a county and produce food. Food will be produced by the counties themselves.
Okay.
However, Kenya is not the only country that has devolved. We have seen countries like United States of America that has states, so it's a form of a devolution. And what the countries do is there is federal government and there is county government. The federal government in the US establishes certain targets for the country to achieve.
Okay.
And say, this is a country called Kenya. We are now 50.5 million people. That will be confirmed next month. Our consumption on maize, per capita consumption is 90 kilos. So 1 bag. So we need 50 million bags. By year 2030, we will be 65. By year 2050, we will be 100. At that point, we will be requiring this level of production. Where in our country called Kenya do we have a comparative advantage in producing maize? It was in Gisho, Trans Nzoia, Nandi, Bungoma. We go in there and we sit with governors and say, you will be producing for us 50 million bags of maize. And this is what we as national government are going to do. Okay. This is you as county is going to do. We have to move in a big way to this large-scale production. The one that we were talking about, the Garana Kurarus that are, rebooted Garana Kuraru. Okay. We need to go to other areas where we have potential, in Turkana, area where we have potential for doing large scale, so that because as I told you, the gap right now is 15 million bags. We cannot deal with that from our small-scale farmers. That will be dealt with from large-scale production. As we promote our small-scale farmers to start moving out of maize into avocado, into macadamia, into mangoes, and all those kind of things. So, in essence, we are talking about one, political goodwill. If you don't know where you are going, any road will take you there. Right now, our path towards achieving food security is a road that we don't know where we are going, and any road will take us there.
Dr. James Nyoro, there's no better place to leave that conversation unless we have a clear roadmap and decide this is the route that we will be taking. Food security will only remain but a dream in this country. Thank you for making time. We are glad, and this is not a conversation that ends today. Next year, everyone, we are open, and our doors are always open. You can come, have a conversation with us. But a very quick tweet here. This person says, your record is very impeccable. What are you doing to ensure that what you're saying is the reality on the ground in Kiambu County?
Okay.
30 seconds.
Okay.
Camera 3?
No, we have a project in Kiambu County.
Look at camera 3.
Oh, sorry. We have a project in Kiambu County where we're trying to enhance food security in the arid and semi-arid parts of Kiambu County, and also within the middle part. And we have learned that for the last 2 years. And I can tell you, and anybody who wants can come and visit us, it's making a major difference to the extent that we've now introduced the kienyeji chicken to go together with maize. We can talk about what we are doing. Specifically, we are revolving around the Coca-Cola story that I was talking about. Make sure that you get the right technology at the right place, but know how to open it so that you can drink it.
Well, there you have it. A very quick tweet here from Eliezer A. Kenya. He says, corrupt vultures are always hovering around good government projects. Well, what a place to leave this conversation. We've had a good time having this conversation with Dr. Nyoro. We've been very glad that you've been part of this conversation. Guys, we only have an hour. We cannot exhaust all the comments, but our digital team is there interacting with you, talking to you, and ensuring that everything you say is answered. Dr. Nyoro's Twitter handle is right below the screen, so you could tweet him directly and he could address some of these issues. My name is Nyoro Gang, and on behalf of the whole team, super producer Ceci Masiwanza ensures every single Thursday this show is up and running, and every other person that made it a success, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again next Thursday, same place, same time. Until then, remember to be good and do good.